Well, hello there, everyone. And, one more edit for me.
This is my personal preference.
We are popping out the chat.
So we can see all of your responses better.
All right, then. So before we get through with the show, let's do what we usually do. Let's start off with our shots. What do we got today, Dusty?
Same as always.
I thought we were going to go pickleback today.
Oh, I forgot.
You forgot the dumb bitch juice?
I did forget.
All right, well, cheers to everyone. Hopefully you all could imbibe with us. I'm still never going to fully like Fireball on its own. Yeah, it's just Fireball today. All right. All right, well, I guess we will begin the show like we normally do. And, welcome to Great Muzzle Geekery. Hi there, and welcome to Great Muzzle Geekery for the week of April 13, 2020, episode 47. I'm Dusty Red, and with me as always,
I'm Dusty White.
And let us get it right into this week's news. Last week we mentioned the success of Uber Eats and the pasty pasta parcel producing portage pervading provisions to perpetually peerless purveyors. Well, this week, Uber Eats has come out with a list of foods by state that have been the most requested foods. It seems Illinois shares the sentiment of some of our friends of ours, and French fries are the number one delivery food. But my dear Dusty, do you know what some of our neighbors are ordering?
Cheese curds?
Where's cheese curds being?
I'm guessing cold cheese Mexico, aka Wisconsin.
You are incorrect, my dear.
Really? Let's go with I don't even onion rings.
Onion rings are actually not on the list actually. So our friends in Wisconsin seem to be ordering crab rangoon.
Really?
Like it's cream cheese, so I mean it makes sense. There's cheese in there, so I will give you some credit there.
It's cheese-like product.
It's deep fried cheese of some sort. What about I'm going to use the term loosely, friends to the east in Indiana? Spits out. It's all garbage food. Nobody's eating healthy.
I'm trying to think of Uber Eats because Uber Eats doesn't necessarily always have like the really like a lot of places up until this probably didn't deliver or subscribe to Uber Eats. So I'm trying to think of garbage food. Fried rice.
Ooh, actually pretty close. Indiana has waffle fries.
Okay.
So apparently that's the big thing. How about our friends in Michigan? What if our friends in Michigan seem to be number one ordering? I'll give you a hint. It has something that I hate inside of it.
Well, that can be a number of things, but I'm going to say for French fries.
No.
Oh.
Pad Thai.
Pad Thai, really?
I don't like peanuts in food.
Oh,
I like peanut butter. I like peanut flavoring things, but peanuts in food, no. But yeah, Michigan's with Pad Thai. Some of our others are apparently Colorado likes carne asada fries.
Okay, that I could get down for.
I would be down for some of that too. Minnesota is garlic naan.
Really?
Ohio is not so fries. Then we have something like Texas and Tennessee and Michigan actually are all on the Pad Thai train.
Interesting.
And then I like Kentucky is also Pad Thai. So it seems a lot of like Mexican type theme and a lot of just deep fried nonsense that is really good.
Okay.
So I mean, obviously you're not going to get something healthy coming in and some yum delicious foods, but yeah, it's a lot of fried goodness and whatnot. Not to mention my own adventure of getting some Chinese food yesterday, which took about an hour.
Right.
I mean, I don't want to blame them, and I had tried to be super patient, but it was definitely a case of like, okay, wait outside in the line 6 feet apart from everyone, and they slowly brought you like one order at a time ish. Even if you're like done before everybody else, because we had a small order.
Right.
And yeah, we had to wait for somebody else at a larger order.
Which apparently I was,
Cold crab rangoon.
Cold crab ragoon. But no, I try to remember what Uber Eats and like Dinner Dash and all these other like apps that used to do this stuff before the pandemic, and how much that's changed. Like there's places that are basically trying to employ their people by doing delivery drivers. Could you imagine having this pandemic before there was like apps like that?
Internet?
Well, I'm just saying, like we would all be playing Snake on our Nokias, typing out text messages with our 300 messages a month.
I'll be playing Drug Wars on a TI 83 or TI 90 something. I can't remember.
Well, or even any of these delivery drivers before there were GPS. I mean, I worked for pizza or Papa John's,
which isn't real pizza.
I agree. But I can imagine before GPS, because I used to have drivers that did it before GPS, and you just had to know your location
or MapQuest it and get even more lost. Printing out 12 sheets on MapQuest.
I remember all of the paper in my my glove compartment. Can't talk.
Glove compartment.
With all the MapQuest directions. Yeah, that's world that kids don't have to know these days. Amongst the new changes of live streaming since the coronavirus took place, there is a new record holder in the world of live streaming. Twitch personality Luis Los Polos TV San Martino, 161 plus hour broadcast, is now the longest uninterrupted stream on any platform. The broadcast started on March 29th, doing a subathon, committing to extend his stream by 2 minutes for every subscription he received.
Jeez.
According to Guinness Book of World Records, the record before this was held by Hulu, whose social team had orchestrated a broadcast that lasted 161 hours, 11 minutes, and 32 seconds back in May of 2019. Lewis hit triple digits on April 3rd and then by April 5th surpassed the record, but kept going as an agreement with his viewers. Upon hitting 10,000 subs, he committed to 40 plus more hours until he hit 200 hours in total. His dad and brother helped him by streaming while he napped.
All right.
And currently he has over 400,000 followers and 166,000 hours watched. Currently streams most Fortnite, NBA 20K or 2K20, Uno, and Call of Duty.
We're on the opposite end here, where we're like, the more subscriptions we get, the sooner we'll get off the air. No, I mean, it's pretty. I mean, I don't like the fact that he's got his brother and his. I mean, technically, the stream is available,
right? It's live streaming,
but it wasn't him directly doing it for that long. But
I think if he hadn't had naps, you would just see the descent into madness.
Well, you see some of the Let's Play stuff and the Twitch streams that will do for charities, and they'll go for 24 straight hours, and it's yeah. The 24 hours just straight of being awake, one individual doing it. Like, we've done it, but there's a level of like sleep deprivation that kicks in, and words don't become words anymore, and you start making sounds, and things that you think are hilarious
aren't so hilarious.
Beetlejuice. So who could forget Michael Keaton's role as Beetlejuice, along with the recently deceased Adam and Barbara, who were played by Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin in the 1998 film by Tim Burton. Over 30 years later, a team consisting of a French filmmaker, Fred China, producer and 1980s fanatic, Adam Goldberg, the creator of the TV show The Goldbergs, and producer Lee Leshin, have kickstarted a documentary called Documentary for the Recently Deceased. I personally was excited until I saw the trailer, though, I have to admit. It seems that it was more of a nostalgia trip for the hardcore Beetlejuice fans.
Okay.
As they talked to the locals of the town of East Corneth in Vermont. As well as they talked about makeup techniques and some of the stop motion animation techniques that they used to make the film so memorable. However, As the documentary is currently in its post-production, it doesn't appear as if the team was able to wrangle any interviews with Tim Burton himself, nor speaking to any of the primary characters and cast members like Gina Davis or Alec Baldwin.
Okay.
So, still, the Kickstarter project was a success, and there's clearly people that are interested in seeing what information can be dug up about the movie that has been so profound, and still is very profound, from the 80s and 90s kids, thanks to, a lot of head nods, theme park appearances, and cartoons that basically had anyone with a ghoulish face and a black and white pinstripe suit. What are you thinking?
Well, I personally have a couple of memories from watching Beetlejuice in general.
The movie or the cartoon?
Both.
Okay.
I liked the cartoon. I always wanted to be hip and stylish with a poncho. Not always works for some body types, but the only thing I remember from my childhood from Beetlejuice was being scared of the dinner scene.
Oh yeah, the face hugger.
Yeah, that traumatized me as a child. I got to the point where I heard that song and became very scared as a kid. So those are my Beetlejuice memories.
The very intro. Okay.
What about you? What are some memories?
I mean, my little sister absolutely loves the movie, the cartoon. I think she went out to Las Vegas and actually seen the Tim Burton museum display thing they got going. So she's a fanatic. I could see her absolutely. And obviously, Seamus is saying Deo is awesome. Deo
is the trigger.
Jump in the Line and Deo.
Jump in the Line was fine. Deo scared the crap out of me.
By Harry Belafonte. But yeah, so
agreed.
So it's really good. I personally like the movie. I have to admit, I liked it the first couple times. Then I started to hate it. Okay. Because it was on regularly. My sister loved it. She had Beetlejuice toys, all this stuff. And I started to hate it. And then after a little while, it kind of grew back on me again as I was able to become older and kind of understand more and go, man, this is actually really good, really dark.
Like you see it from a different perspective as you grow older.
Well, and you look at it too, it's one of Tim Burton's first.
Yeah.
Like he still was kind of a nobody. He did some shorts for Disney. He had really nothing under his belt. And this was him going full left field. There's really I want to say we're going to argument what's a B movie and what isn't.
Right.
This was a movie that was like, you know what, we'll go for it. We're reaching here. Michael Keaton wasn't doing too much. Alec Baldwin was still young. Gina Davis. So they really pushed for it. And yeah, it just became otherworldly and so iconic, especially with that costume and the set design and everything that was fake about it and real about it. The model, it's one of those movies that I want to say won't stand the test of time, but will stand. Like you look at it,
it is iconic. You called it.
The animation's terrible. We look at it now and you're like, oh my goodness. And maybe a reboot wouldn't do it justice though. That's something you don't want to reboot.
And I didn't realize it until much later as a kid that the mom from Home Alone was the same crazy mom yep. from Beetlejuice. And just some of the things I didn't get until I was much older. Even now, when I'm finding myself watching some things that I liked as a teenager and making correlations and going, oh, I didn't get that as a kid. And the adult humor that you don't get until you rewatch some of this stuff.
Like watching Rocco's Modern Life.
Yeah.
Some of the adult humor in there. It's like, oh, Rocco works at a sex line. Goes over our heads when we're 9 and 10. But,
right, exactly.
Oh, it's eye-opening as an adult.
So one of our Patreons is actually in the chat this afternoon, and I'm very glad that I picked this article to talk about. But pie will automate your life. Well, it will automate your brewing. Shared this week on Reddit, a user known as Warshi7819 shared his Raspberry Pi brewing project. With the pandemic, Warshi decided to upgrade his hardware with a Raspberry Pi 3B+. The setup uses 2 waterproof sensors placed inside 60-liter kettles to monitor the batch's temperature, running a custom Python script on Raspbian created by Warshi. Comes with a custom UI where you can input the recipe details such as mash in, mash sets, and boiling parameters, and any additional hops. For our programmer fans, the program uses more than 2,500 lines of code. New features will be coming, such as monitor over Wi-Fi. I have very limited a history or an interaction with Raspberry Pi other than a very specific mod that I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about. But what would be your thoughts about automated things like that?
Well, I mean, I am a hardware guy, not software guy.
True.
This goes over my head in some regards. That said, I guess realistically you boil it down to, if you want to make the same exact beer over and over and over, perfect.
Right.
There's something about the beauty and inconsistencies.
It's like cooking versus baking.
Cooking versus baking is exactly where I was going. You cook to taste, you bake to a recipe. So what are we doing with this? Yeah, we're making the process. See, I mean, again, we know somebody very specifically that loves to automate everything. So, that's good. That makes life easier for going, hey, I want this beer. I want this exact taste. This I like. And I want to recreate this every single time to be this exact flavor. Fantastic. Perfect. Makes life easy. If you're going down the trail of, hey, I want to more cook, I want to go off a taste, maybe a little less hops, maybe a little bit more, and kind of change it up, and this is more of a seasonal or this and this, then it could be less than perfect, but you could still use many of the parameters on there to go, what's my boiling point? Because those are things you want to be careful of, like, hey, you don't want to overboil it. Regardless of what you're making, you don't want to overboil it. You don't want to overheat. You don't want to overdo.
There's certain parts of a lot of things.
You're sitting on a couch.
Right.
And all of a sudden, your Google or Alexa goes, beer's done. Like, yes!
Well, there's some things you want to idiot-proof in something. You want to take out the variable factors. Mm-hmm. So boiling and keeping something at a consistent heat. I mean, that's why sous vide cooking is so gentle and makes things really taste really well, because you're controlling something that normal product or normal appliances like an oven or a stove have a hard time making things consistent.
And I've got a former coworker that actually bought one of the green egg smokers.
Yep.
And he drilled a hole into it and installed his own, basically his own Wi-Fi thermometer.
Wow.
And had it, and he did the app and everything for his phone, like made his own little system for it. So he was able to smoke his foods and basically smoke meats, and all the information just went right to his phone.
Okay.
And it was a very rough prototype thing, but it was something I got to work with him a little bit on, and just seeing it and seeing his excitement for it, going, yeah, like, check this out. And he shows me at work, like it was mid-August, and he shows me, he's like, the pork's got 4 more hours to go. The temperature is perfect. Everything is optimal. When I get home, I'm going to have a pulled pork sandwich. So he was able to automate it himself, to use his router to go to him. So it's really cool to do these things to make the job easier. I mean, why not? It's 2020. Make your life easier by using technology.
And I kind of wrote myself notes here for basically some things that I am seeing in the community as far as like Facebook and Twitter that kind of go along with this, which is the 3D printing. Mm-hmm. I personally am going to be a new owner, a beneficiary of a 3D printed pauldron.
So pauldron, for you non-LARP nerds, is a piece of shoulder armor. Yeah. That was 3D printed with the symbol, with the flame symbol, every on visual camera here, to basically be armor for our game. That is just 3D printed.
Right.
Like, ta-da!
And I just like to even kind of put in there the crafters that I've been seeing sewing masks for hospitals and friends, and have sent those on. I really enjoy seeing people taking something that they love, which might be programming or making beer, and
talking
combining
into a microphone.
Right. So had all the bad there. But taking it and applying it to the masses and making it so that they can, because even this brewer, this Washi 7819 might be able to take this brew and be like, hey, my 20 plus friends, I've automated this, I've made it quicker, I've made it more efficient, therefore cheaper. Let me share it with more people, and really just enjoy that mindset and that collab.
Science! So in 1973, it was one of the first 24 animated movies that the Walt Disney Studios produced, taking a centuries-old tale and giving it a different look, as animals portrayed the roles of Little John, Maid Marian, and the titular character, Robin Hood. Ooh, the musical comedy was a big hit for Disney then, and now Disney Plus has announced that the classic hit of Robin Hood will be remade into a live-action CG film akin to the 2019 Lion King. Carlos Lopez Estrada will be directing the film, with his best-known film being Blindspotting. It's an interesting choice for a director, though, but Disney seems really keen on wanting to keep the musical aspect to the movie. So Estrada does have experience with such and will help maintain that musical feel. While the story is well known, the script will be handled by Carrie Grunlin, who is written for Godmothered, which is yet to be filmed, but it will be featured on Disney Plus in the near future, and has written for the 2019 live-action remake of Lady and the Tramp. Also, known for producing the remake of Dumbo and Tron Legacy, Justin Springer will be working with live-action CGI animals once more as the producer for this live-action Robin Hood. I am personally ridiculously excited. But what's your take?
I'm torn. I'm excited, but at the same time, as somebody who hasn't brought herself to watch the live action Dumbo, for those listeners that don't know, I'm a huge Dumbo
You are
nerd.
A tattoo eventually?
Eventually. But I haven't been able to bring myself to watch the live action because there's something going to be different. The only live action animal movie, I guess I should say, that I've seen that was redone for Disney was Lion King. And that was just recently that I watched it. And there was just I think it was best said by another friend of mine that there's almost lifelessness portrayed in the animals' eyes. We're so used to animation. We're so used to hand-drawn characterizations.
And you're actually touching on something I was really thinking about over the last few hours, or 24 hours, really. First off, I have to say, our friend Travis does, on a scale of cats to Milan, show me where the animated mouse has touched you. My thing about it is Dumbo and Lion King are still very animals.
Okay.
Robin Hood is far more anthropomorphic. It is far more humanized, which I'm very curious about, because I agree with you. From what I've seen, Dumbo and Lion King definitely have it seems their expression is limited.
Right.
Because they're animals. Yeah, they could talk, but they're still, like, if your cat talks to you, it's not going to have... It reminds me of a story.
Oh, boy.
Of when they did Dragonheart.
Okay.
The movie back in the 90s with Sean Connery.
Okay.
Do you remember that movie or not?
I do.
Okay.
I do.
Well, if I'm not mistaken, and I could be correct on this, but I believe that the original Dragonheart did not... When the dragon was originally done, they had a different design for the dragon.
Was it more animated?
Well,
or
actually the opposite. On its head was like a solid plate. Was supposed to be this big, like, spiky kind of plate in the thing.
Okay.
But the animator saw Sean Connery in the soundstage and saw that he is very vocal, but visually
animated when
with
he
his
talks.
eyebrows.
Oh, okay.
His
That
eyebrows go when he brings up, and he's very expressive. And they ended up spending X million dollars to scrap a lot of that original CGI, which again, this is 90s, so it was a much more of a painstaking process. Scrapped a lot of it and redid it to allow the dragon to have eyebrows as well. Not so much eyebrows, but eye ridges.
Okay.
So it could be more expressive. It could fit Sean Connery all the better. So now you start looking into at what point do an anthropomorphic style Robin Hood, Maid Marian, and whatnot compared to Dumbo and very more
Animal.
more
Right.
animal than humanoid. Where here, Robin Hood is very humanoid. Unless they're gonna go just full Dumbo and Lion King and just have a fox with an oversized tunic, just I love you, made fox noises. Like unless they do that, I'm very curious to see if they take that step and go more anthropomorphic, go standing upright, and maybe elongate some of the battle scenes a little bit. And you could do a lot with it. Because again, another thing I like about it is I was against the Lion King remake because it's still too soon for me.
Okay.
Lion King is still a pinnacle. The original Lion King is pinnacle. Mid-90s
That
prime
whole
Disney.
meme of you can't hear pictures and you just need
Oh,
that
yeah.
sun
Ha!
crushing
Yeah.
it.
So, but you have something from what 1973. You could go ahead and remake that, and you might be able to do a really good job of it. Because there is, I mean, as great as Robin Hood is, there's still a lot of things about it that are clearly recycled animation.
Right.
Between like the dance scene is used in 50 other movies.
Yeah, very true.
Some of the inconsistencies, the colors, the voice acting is good, but there's things you could still do to make it a better, more modern movie.
I want to take a moment to really hit on what Bada Zebra said in the chat room as far as hate the remakes because there's these gorgeous films that some of the best classic and traditional animations have ever done. CG basically meant that traditional animation is dead because it's so much cheaper to do CGI. I have to agree with him on that. There is an artwork that is lost with I used to watch the Disney behind the scenes special things on the Disney Channel where it showed painstakingly animation cell after animation cell after animation cell that those just aren't taught. They're you know that's prehistoric, but
I will argue on that of not everything from the past is meant to be held up to that standard. There are things that you could look at for modern. Why not use, again, we're just talking about using modern technology for our breweries. Why not use modern technology for our stuff? Yeah, you could get a good beer if you sit there and do everything by hand and mash your grain and malts and stuff by hand. But why not use technology as well?
Right.
A good example of that is look at all the old Hanna-Barbera stuff.
Oh,
like you can sit there and look and go, oh yeah, this is great animation. They use shortcuts everywhere they can.
Right.
One of them is the collar. If you look at any old Hanna-Barbera stuff,
very good call.
You'll notice a lot of characters from Hanna-Barbera have a lot of collars. Yogi Bear, like all of that stuff.
It just makes you question why a bunch of animals run around with no pants on.
Well, that too. Well, Nick Wilde didn't wear pants. No, Nick Wilde had pants. Robin Hood didn't have pants. Anyway, but I want to get to my point of the Hanna-Barbera technique is they use collars and everything because you're able to do a static background and even do a static foreground, and all the animation was just the head. And there's usually a line that shows up between where the body animates and the head animates. And so you hide that line with the collar. That's why Yogi Bear is the most obvious and easily to reference. If you watch old Yogi Bear stuff,
his head stays the same, but his body
his body stays the same.
Oh, okay.
More often than not, his body stays the same, or he has sharp movements with his hands, but his neck down pretty much stays static because it's the same.
Stop motion. It's just
it's not stop motion. Like it's the same slide or the same panel or whatever it is used over and over, and then the head is the one that changes. So just because, again, I agree with Bada, but just because the old ways were painstaking, there's a tradition to it and an art to it. There's also a level of they even tried to find ways to shortcut that. They've tried to find ways to move around and try to not have to do that kind of work, especially when you're dealing with stuff that was spitting out episodes almost weekly.
Mm-hmm.
Why not use CGI? Why not make it more realistic? We've been doing it with video games for years. We've been doing it with TV shows. We've been doing it with a variety of things. So it is a very delicate balance, though, because obviously
I wouldn't compare the two.
Sonic the Hedgehog is the new Sonic the Hedgehog movie,
which I haven't seen yet.
Well, but you saw this stuff where they had the original Sonic design was absolute garbage, and then they had to go and redesign it. So my thing will be on how, to me, when it comes to the CGI stuff, how real and gritty do they want to do it?
Right.
Do you want to make it where it's basically Robin Hood Braveheart, where you have a CGI fox that's covered in blood and war paint and just like, ah! Or do you try to maintain a lighter feel to it? I think that's going to be the trick about it. That's going to be the, are they going to keep it light? it's supposed to be a musical, so that may help because Lion King wasn't too much of a musical. It had some songs, had
I
some
mean, it had
memorable
some-
songs.
yeah.
Beep, beep, beep.
Right, exactly.
But that's it. It is that I think that'll be kind of the make or break in terms of the live action stuff because obviously Cats was a nightmare. Dumbo kind of got mixed reviews, but it's also Tim Burton,
True.
which is going to get mixed reviews anyway. Lion King kind of got mixed reviews. What I mean,
I think I'm with Bada with I will see. I guess I shouldn't say I am with Bada, but I can see Bada's point. But I will see the live actions and hold them to a different set of standards than I would obviously true Disney animation from my childhood. It's a different genre of film almost in itself.
so ultimately, let us know. Email us, send us messages in our Discord, Facebook. Instagram too. But go ahead and let us know in some sort of social media and email us directly at greatmostlygeekery@gmail.com and let us know what you think about this live action, kind of this movement from live action, especially the remakes of the classics,
Right.
to live action. Or do you start to say, you know what, leave the classics alone and make your own live action movies? There's other characters that you could easily put in for other. I mean, you could have a Joan of Arc story using animal characters and whatnot. I mean, a little religious there, but you know what I mean. There's other characters that you could use, and maybe throw a zebra or two in there. And that concludes this week's news. So we're going to go down a little bit of a rabbit hole because, well, Dusty White and I have you've more or less recently got into it, but I got into it since day one.
Right.
And
You're a hipster.
I am hipster, totally hipster. So cool. And something that's been really kind of on my mind and something that I kind of point to you guys because it's kind of interesting. But we do have a new sound cue now. Ooh, we're fancy. Anyway, let's go down the rabbit hole, shall we?
Down the rabbit hole. So, this week's Down the Rabbit Hole is about a YouTube channel that, as Red already mentioned, he did turn me on to. But it's called Unus Annus. And it's a YouTube channel created by Markiplier and Crank Gameplays. This channel is planned to be deleted after exactly 1 year. And since they uploaded their first video on November 15th, 2019, is pretty, some 100 days into it, 100 plus days, with none of its content to be re-uploaded on their own channels and all of its merch no longer available once it's done. Obviously, Markiplier being Mark Edward Fishbach, and Crank Gameplays is Ethan Mark Nestor.
Nestor Darling.
Oh,
I think he's a divorcee family and he got both names, but correct. Markiplier's only 30.
Jeez. Okay.
And Ethan is 23.
I feel so old.
Continue.
They suggest viewers create memories in their own unique experiences. Unus Annus is Latin phrase for 1 year and will end on November 14th since 2020 is a leap year.
Now, I did do a little research on Unus Annus as well, and both of those terms, because Latin also uses masculine and feminine phrases, Unus Annus are both masculine terms.
Okay.
Which means it actually could be translated two ways. It is 1 year left for man, or this is the man's year.
Interesting.
So you can look at it two ways.
Interesting.
I thought it was fascinating. I think it's unintended consequences, but it was very
fair.
One of those things of like, oh, neat.
Basically, the way they port their shows and port their videos are, what would you do if you only had a year left to live? Would you squander the time you were given, or would you make every second count? I feel like this is really important because, I mean, obviously
They did this before quarantine,
right? Exactly.
Which is all
November,
the more frightening.
November of 2019. Obviously, they're not, fortune tellers or anything that saw this coming, and actually, quarantine has kind of affected their ability to do what they set forth. I feel like they set forth a very specific idea of what they wanted to do with some of their videos early on.
So
It
what
was
do you
very
think?
specific.
Well, see, and here's the thing where I don't know so much we disagree, but I think this is what happens. And Skylar points out to us that they're prying on FOMO, and actually I disagree. What I think the original episodes are, because if you look at this, let's do the math here. This started on November 15th. We reported back in November as well, when Copa was putting its foot down on YouTube and was saying that they wanted to make sure that children and children's shows were not going to affect YouTube's algorithms more or
They
less.
were basically like anti-algorithm, which a lot of
who is Unus Annus.
Yeah, Unus Annus is very anti-algorithm.
Well,
like they're trying to break it.
They're anti-Copa and almost in a way anti-YouTube.
They're anti. I wouldn't say they're anti-YouTube.
Why not?
I would say that they're anti-monetization,
which is YouTube's point.
Okay.
They make a point to say, hey, we are going to do ridiculous videos that are not going to be monetized. So there's going to be no ads and whatnot. And we're going to more or less break their algorithms. We're going to break YouTube by saying, hey, we are going to we're going to upload this content. It's clearly not for children.
Right.
Seeing as episode 001 is cooking with
sex toys.
Like,
I've never seen a dildo beat eggs as well as I saw that.
I mean, they put it onto a power drill, so it helped.
Innovation.
Wibble, 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 wibble. Oh god. But they're very clearly making it not for kids,
right?
Which is again was this whole Copa situation of that line between Markiplier's videos. He was doing a lot of games on Minecraft, which got flagged for, hey, Minecraft is a children's thing.
Right.
Yeah, adults do it too, but it's marketed for children. Therefore, any videos that you have that are Minecraft are susceptible to potential fines, punishments, whatever.
These rules by Copa.
Because children get into it. So it's a good way to kind of circumvent and more or less stick it to YouTube and say, hey, you know what? Let's take this cool concept and do, we got 1 year to do all sorts of random stuff. And again, they do all sorts of crazy things. Do you have a couple lists of some crazy stuff?
Some of them are some of the things they've done over the last month or so. Was Unus Annus. Unus Annus was a challenge that they put towards their listeners to do something, to learn something new.
30 days
take
to learn
30 days, a new hobby. Markiplier did juggling.
Mm-hmm.
Ethan was supposed to be doing like a kick thing.
He's supposed to learn how to do a kick flip.
Yeah.
Which he bailed on.
Yeah.
And Mark gave him some snot for it.
But then they turned around and made April, they renamed it because this is a bad choice, but it was Unus Annus, where to kind of be on the front lines of COVID-19 and not touching your face, they basically made it that every time that they touched their face, they were going to pay $100 towards charity, and charities that for specifically COVID-19.
6 days later, there were $10,000.
Yeah, they topped it. They were like, okay, we can't, because even as YouTubers, there's points where you touch your face and you don't even pay attention.
Mm-hmm.
But they also port themselves with the black and white imagery that I really dig. Mm-hmm. Some of their followers, their timepiece that they do, the hourglass and the skull imagery that they do, and the white and the black. It's really cool. And for the artistic part of my brain, it really sends imagery down that memento mori, live your life, try to make sure. And even though I go along with Skylar that says that they're trying to go for FOMO for views, but it's basically no, like, do something, like go out and experience life, which is what their videos kind of focused on in the very beginning.
And they're obviously struggling now,
right?
Because there was a point where they were doing going to Airbnbs and doing like learning how to like doing a one day
learn how to be a DJ,
DJing, glass blowing, other like little
like teaching people
stunt
how to
fighting.
do stunt fighting, what is cupping, and like
the
massage
therapies and stuff.
therapy, chiropractic, just certain things that seemed interesting. Even just buying random stuff on Amazon and testing it. It's fun to watch a 20-minute interlude of these two hosts basically trying these new things. Now, obviously, with COVID-19 and being in shelter in place, they've had to change what they're doing, and they haven't. There's some that have been.
There's some really bad ones. Let's call a spade here.
You hate Mad Libs.
I hate Mad Libs. Mad Libs are so dumb, so dumb. Now they did make it funny by running it through Google Translator like 5 times. Because at that point, it went from some lame Mad Lib to some mad scientist coming up with some nonsense.
Right.
But ultimately, I still hate Mad Libs.
I think one of my favorite that we are looking to do for Grey Muzzle is actually they did a Hunger Games type battle, or basically like Hunger Games.
They found a Hunger Games simulator.
Right.
And they imported a bunch of YouTubers and Twitch artists and whatnot, and they played through the scenario, click, 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 and it kind of automates and whatnot.
Right.
And guess what, ladies and gentlemen?
Some of you may be subject to a Hunger Games cornucopia island, see who survives last type LARP scenario.
The LARPer games, so to speak.
Because I am a photographer, I have very good pictures of a majority of the people that we are thinking about using for this, and we are going to basically upload them so that we can use those pictures and then basically run through a scenario to see who lasts in the Hunger Games, basically via LARP.
And we'll see what we throw in there. We got some LARPers. We'll see about getting some other non-LARPers as well. And try to put a smattering of people out there to see who survives our little game.
But basically, to kind of wrap up the rabbit hole, and this kind of goes back to them breaking the algorithm. But in 3 days in launching, so again, back in November of 2019, within 3 days of launching Unus Annus, they netted an impressive 944,000 subscribers.
And as of April 11th, 2020, they currently have 2.92 million subscribers with 295 million total views. And obviously, I'm a fair number of them as well. But it's interesting. If you want to look at it from a critical eye, it's a couple of YouTubers being silly, kind of flaunting to a degree on some of the fortune that they've made through their separate channels. Again, Markiplier himself has like 15 million views. Crank Game Players have a good 1 million views himself. And actually, he didn't have 1 million views.
Right.
Until he got onto Unus Annus. And then got the sympathy air quote votes.
And I kind of feel like I had known of Markiplier long ago. Some of his, Can't Make Me Laughs and even some of his game playthroughs were really enjoyable. Markiplier kind of runs that line of he's got a personality that runs to like the sound of 11 for me. So I can only watch him a little bit. But for Unus Annus, I really kind of enjoy his endearing personality. He's a little less like, hey, I've got to crank this up to match my viewers. But even Ethan I kind of get Ethan. He's a little bit more of an average Joe. He's got a cute face, but he's just a little bit more younger.
Well, it's not even a little bit. He's 23.
Right.
He's young. He's got money because of YouTube, and he's trying to figure out where. Because that's the other thing too, is it's hard to be a YouTuber nowadays. Like that ship has passed. That there's no longer going to be a big name that's going to come out of nowhere. The whole using like a production to make these shows and stuff like that's now the big thing. I mean, obviously, what's some of the other YouTubers? Let's do some shameless plugs. Why not? Because I'm a fan of a good number of things too.
I like Sorted.
Sorted is really good.
Sorted.
One of my favorites, hands down. I think it's yours too. BWB.
Binging with Babish.
Binging with Babish is one that I definitely.
And both of those, Sorted and Binging with Babish, basically kind of fill my. Even though he started to remake it and does a bunch of YouTube stuff now too, Alton Brown. It's that knowledge with cooking makes all of us better cooks.
For sure.
So
we all need to eat.
I enjoy that style. Obviously, Binging with Babish plays that pop culture level with me as well, because
How to Drink is another good one, and Travis just posted that. Yep.
I actually turned Red on to How to Drink.
Absolutely.
Because we both enjoy drinking and different cocktails and trying, and even I think just past this Saturday. Old fashions? Duh.
It's kind of an old fashioned. Like, realistically, I don't have the orange in the cherry, or the orange piece and the cherry on there, but it is orange bitters.
Right.
A little bit of simple syrup and 2.5 shots of bourbon.
Yep.
With a big old ice cube and
my go-to.
I'm feeling it.
But yeah, some of our favorites. Critical Role is definitely a big draw. I've watched several of those episodes. I really enjoy the fact that Critical Role is popular and has gotten, things like me and you. I've got
mixed feelings on Critical Role.
Okay.
I love Critical Role. I do not have 3.5 hours to watch a show. But we've already long established anything more than 20 minutes, it becomes a struggle for me.
You ADD person. Mythical Morning. Absolutely. I am a good fan of even How to Do Makeup with Pilaf.
Oh, I don't know why. She's infectious.
She is.
She's like you.
Yeah.
Has an infectious laugh, is infectious personality. So it's one of those people that's like, okay, this is a good, I'm going to air quote waste of 20 minutes, but this is a good expenditure of time. I'm down with that.
So those are some of our favorites for sure.
I don't want to forget Smarter Every Day is one that I fall down a lot. You see, how about the story when you turned around the corner and you saw me watching the Smarter Every Day video, and the look I gave you was this: you watched me you caught me watching porn or something.
Oh, now I understand what you're talking about. Okay, so I just you just had this look on your face, and I was caught off guard because I was just and you clicked real quick, so I just 2 and 2 put together. It's just oh shit, I've interrupted Red doing something. But he's just no, check this out. They can use lasers to break things like Google Home and Alexa and break into people's houses, and the effect of was watching the imaginary sheet metal sombrero being put on your head and going, that's insane.
I love stuff like that. But yeah, so a couple things we'll wrap around, and again, Unus Annus again is Markiplier and basically Mark and Ethan, and they are using the whole, we're going to have 1 year of videos, one a day for the next 365 days, and then when it's done, we're going to delete the channel. Yeah. So it's kind of it reminds me of the sand portraits and sidewalk chalk artists that kind of get an idea of everything's temporary.
Yep.
You don't become too attached to things because it will go away eventually. Obviously, there's ways to record videos on YouTube and everything else, but even then, they jokingly say, "Someday you're going to die anyway, and those videos are gone."
Right.
So, it's temporary in terms of, sure, you could have that video, but in the long run, a lot of the stuff may be deleted in 50 years from now. There may be no existence of that other than a T-shirt or two that exists.
Right.
And the concept of everything is temporary, try some new things, kind of bucking the algorithm and kind of messing with YouTube and going, you know what, we're not going to deal with COPA. We're not going to deal with monetization. We're going to make money selling our own merch.
Right.
We're going to make money doing what we do, and people are going to support us for us and not have to deal with their ads, not have to deal with what YouTube BS has to offer. Some of it's dumb. Some of it's funny. Some of it's entertaining. Some of it's enlightening. Some of it's just bathroom humor. But I've just kind of become a fan of it. While we're here, we could do a couple quick plugs. Why not? So Quack Quack Honk has a YouTube channel and actually has one of our pictures that she
A
did
few
for
of
us.
one of my favorite artists.
Well,
actually.
I've got a wall right now
Right.
with three different pictures on there, but it has the one with the Fonty and the Fox with the big headphones. We also have TV Travis on Twitch.
Yep.
And podcast wherever you get your
Podcasting.
podcasts and whatnot. And we're on there. We actually did an episode a couple weeks ago doing Baby Driver.
Yep.
Good stuff. And yeah, I mean, keep an open eye for your
To
local
improve
makers
your day
and
as well,
to
which is
improve your day on Facebook.
our and if you like our icon, that is directly his artwork, as well as the birthday smattering doodle over here that happened.
Shut up, I love it. It's in my kitchen. Well, kitchen, hallway, whatever thing.
But yeah, please check out, and obviously we do our shout outs every month, the beginning of every month, but please check out some of our fans. Ernor also does artwork great, and we love them. We love them lots. So go and support. And I know I've kind of tooted that horn last week, but again, if you have additional money, basically because you are working from home like I am, I'm not spending as much money on my we're not
spending $15 for like nice fancy drinks anymore. Going out to eat. Oh, I miss really good buffalo wings.
But I'm not spending weekly iPass funds, so I am throwing that towards artists because I'm going to spend that money anyway. I would rather have stuff to hang on my walls. I am very much of the life of, memento mori and basically creating memories. And some of that is artwork. And I would much rather dust a piece of artwork than a random thing that I got
like
from somebody. Yeah. But again, support your artists, support your creators. We really, really appreciate all of you.
And I guess that will end the rabbit hole, and then we'll go into listeners' questions.
Down the rabbit hole. So one of our Patreons, actually officially our first Patreon, is Red Reese, or Clay, as we have come to love. I know him
as Mio Boy at this point.
We love him lots. And had created some really fantastic memories this past February of going to First Squared, and we'll have to tell that story one day. But he wrote in a bunch of questions today that we really appreciate, and some of them were really, really good.
They were like doctorate level questions. Like, you're expecting me to answer this with a couple drinks in me? Here we go.
Has there ever been a piece of artwork within your communities that has triggered an emotional response from you? What was it, and why do you think it did so? You're going to make me answer the doctorate question first?
Absolutely.
So I think the piece that created a really good memory for me was something that I actually commissioned from one of our listeners, and like I said earlier, artists of the show, was To Improve Your Day, was a piece of essentially a memory of a really good memory, basically.
Nobody make me bleed my own blood. Allow myself to introduce
there was
myself.
A photograph that I had of a group of friends that mean a lot to me, and it was a moment in time, and at the time that I commissioned it, the group was really, really close, and things happened and people grow apart, and it's just the story of life. Yeah, the story of life. But he took the commission and made it his own. He used it as an opportunity to better his own art style, learn something new, and created something really memorable from it. He did basically a compilation, like speed video of making the artwork,
which I think personally is one of his more clever things too, because It's one thing to just put up the finished piece of digital work.
Right.
To be
I
like,
would say
hey,
Quack Quack Honk does this too with her.
Quick
With
Hunk does as well. It's like, here's the piece, it's done.
but here's how I did it.
Here's how I did it, and seeing the little undo button flash in the corner, like it gives you an idea of like it's not just ta-da, it's done, but some of these artists have to go through a lot to get things to look the way they may not look like the way their a line is drawn or a face is done or a
This
ponytail
pattern.
is wafting in the wind, and you'll see undo a bunch of times. So it puts into a deeper perspective to see, oh, this isn't just I'm an artist, ta-da, it's done, but rather here's all the pains that I've taken to get this done properly.
Right. So I personally, that seeing that and having that memory of actually watching the video with you at First Squared and watching the other video with Bada, because he was also part of the piece of work, was it's a memory upon a memory. I get to look at this piece of art and go, oh, I remember what caused the piece of art,
Sure.
the people that are behind the piece of art, the watching and reaction of the people that got to see the making of the art. It was just a multi-leveled piece of artwork that I was able to commission and be able to partake in multiple different scenarios. It was really meaningful to me.
I have one of your favorite things. I'm dead inside. I am emotionally drained. There's nothing really here anymore.
There's nothing here.
Like, I'm surprised I even show up in the camera, to be honest with you. Just not like a vampire. I guess art-wise, I'll use music as an art. I have some really lovely photos and lovely art that's been given over the years. But something that's I want to just to be contrarian, I want to go away from, and I actually want to point out musically.
Okay.
I'll go at Pepper Coyote. The song "I'm Not Giving Up." I didn't realize or understand or kind of get, and then went through a relationship that didn't go well, so to speak, and the song kind of really hit on the if I can't be better for you, I'll be better for me type things, and kind of self-development type things. So that was something that really, really gravitated towards me. And it's something that kind of really affected my mentality, my personality, my understanding of things. Now, obviously, I am far more of a musically inclined person. Maybe I'm colorblind and it just that affects art for me. Like, it's beautiful, but I can only see it 75% beauty because I can't see the rest of the colors. But yeah, I have to go with one of the things that's in my fandom, in my community, in my wheelhouse in terms of understanding and stuff. And I've had some conversation with Pepper about this as well. Of I'm Not Giving Up by Pepper Coyote, and this is kind of it's on technically be Look Left when he first did it, but he does end up redoing it on the Spread Thy Wings album.
Mm-hmm.
It's a great song. It's so good. It's just, yeah.
I'm always gravitating towards the saying, and I've actually said this recently to a friend of mine, but when you are happy, you listen to the music. When you are sad, you listen to the lyrics.
Absolutely.
And I feel like music is one of those things that you can have a album or a song strike you in a personal journey of yours at a personal milestone of your life, and then years later have that song hit you completely different depending on what mood you are. You're a big proponent of don't give me your top favorite album, give me your top 3 or top 5.
Yeah,
because that album is changed, or that music, those lyrics can change depending on where you find yourself in life and where you are listening, like I said, listening to the lyrics versus listening to the music. Well, and Not Giving Up is one of those.
Your boy Rob Thomas, Matchbox 20, is on record for saying, like, one of the reporters asked him, like, hey, a lot of your songs are sad. A lot of your songs are deep and heartfelt. You don't have a lot of this, like, get up and dance and be happy songs. And Rob went on record to say, look, when I'm feeling good, I'm out doing things. I'm with my wife. I'm with my family. I'm
Living
I'm
life.
living life. When I'm not feeling well, my outlet is my arts, my
Writing
music.
and producing and putting into feelings to thoughts to words.
So it's weird when I say, I hope Rob never has to put another album out again.
Right, because then that means something tragic has happened.
But at the same time, like, it goes back to my argument with Dave Matthews. His latest album, Come Tomorrow, was a album about celebration of life and the joy of his wife and happy to see his kids, and is the most depressing album I ever heard.
You just don't like it.
He was too happy and I don't like it. Meanwhile, Crash and before or Under the Table and Dreaming, his sister was killed in Johannesburg and he was dealing with some heavy topics, and it was some of his best music. So I'm just saying, I don't wish ill upon anyone, but damn, does ill make people really creative.
Fair. Very true. Kind of on that vein, let's go with another question from Clay. What is the earliest song that you can remember aside from nursery rhymes, and how much do you think it affected your musical interests?
Ooh.
And you go first this time.
It's a hard question because I had a hard line in high school when my music changed dramatically. My family is very big on country music, very big on oldies. I want to say oldies. Oldies has changed now because I've definitely heard Dave Matthews Band on oldie stations now.
Right.
But
Full House is on Nick at Night.
Yeah,
it's kind of the same thing.
Oh no!
I just made you feel old.
No. So it's a case of like, what for me it was a lot of like my family's big Elvis fanatics.
Mhm.
So a lot of Elvis, a lot of country music, a lot of that, like anything produced before 1985 is pretty much my family.
That includes you. Sorry.
There's about to be a technical difficulty in a second as I beat you off camera now. So for me, as much as I want to say, because I did go through a high school period where one of my friends, Keith, one of those guys that like
a listener.
He's a listener, but he's also one of my friends who was my best friend growing up, and one of those people in your life that we don't talk for months or even years at a time,
Right.
and then we meet up and here we go. Just
I've witnessed it.
Like we just catch up like it's yesterday. So he is definitely. I feel bad that I take it for granted sometimes that he's one of those people in my life that I could just call on a whim and just like, hey, what's up? Let's talk. He introduced me a lot to. He introduced me to Led Zeppelin. Okay. He introduced me to Jethro Tull. He introduced me a lot of that 70s vibe, which is weird because as I started getting into that, he then dove into industrial and Nine Inch Nails and stuff and became the dyed black hair, the big ball bearing necklace, the ripped t-shirts, the fishnets, the big pants with like
Jinko
42
jeans.
pockets and whatnot. Like he dove down that. But when he went that route, one of my cousins, she's currently living in Indianapolis, Samantha, she had a CD and it was the Dave Matthews Band Crash album. And no joke, I have the album on my wall for a reason.
He does.
It was one of my most formative albums. Dave Matthews Band, Crash, 1996. If I'm not mistaken, it was Lily White that produced it. Anyway, but that album, she brought it over and she played it for me, and I actually recorded it on tape on a cassette. To the point of halfway through the cassette, because I was recording from a CD, it got cut.
Right.
So I had to flip the cassette over and continue recording. So even to this day, when I hear the album, I'm expecting the song to cut and restart because I had to flip the tape over. But there's a point of that entire album just transformed my life because, again, I don't want to go into whole crazy like fan fanatic here.
Right.
But Dave Matthews Band to me had very capable musicians between one of the top 10 drummers of the world in Carver
Which
Buford.
I didn't understand until actually recently that would be something that
But you had
is true.
A crazy drummer. Dave's vocals, which could be ear piercing to some, but his guitar style is super unique. It's a full strum while picking strings. He had saxophone player. He had a keyboardist. He had a violin player, a bassist at the age of 16 who was just a prodigy for his age. Like, he had a group together that had elements of jazz, elements of funk. I mean, Dave's influences
it's jam band. It's a 100% jam band.
It's jam band, but it's also not Grateful Dead jam band, which was kind of going off that rock influence. Like,
okay.
How can we make rock?
I see that.
Dave had a lot of jazz jam band stuff going on. He had a lot of jazz influence, but he also had a drummer that was jazz based. He had a violinist that was classically trained. Even Dave himself was a big fan of Burning Down the House, Talking Heads, and all these like 80s stuff. So you had this amalgamation of music that just blew my mind and expanded. It was rooted enough in my interest of anything before 85.
Right.
But then was also music that you could listen to as background stuff, as I used to paint miniatures. I used to do I used to make weapons for LARP and all sorts of stuff. I don't know that entire. So for my answer, long story short,
full circle,
the entirety of the Crash album by Dave Matthews Band is probably the big influential thing that developed me. And no joke, I could post later. I have the album on my wall next to the Pepper Coyote Spread Thy Wings that are major influences and molders and
almost kind of like bookshelf ends of, and not to say that you're like at the end of your music enjoyment, but bookends of things that became to be important to you. I would fully agree with that. For me, a very similar upbringing. My mom was a huge Beatles fan, the Monkees, Elvish to
Elvish. I'm just imagining
Elvis to a point. My dad was
Legolas sings.
My dad was Roy Orbison and a lot more piano based, and he loved Billy Joel. Yeah.
Okay, so can we dance on the notion that we've seen floating around of taking the Billy Joel Piano Man song
and making it him singing about it in a gay bar?
He is the only straight guy in a gay bar. Now listen to the song with that concept. That headcanon is amazing. Man, what are you doing here?
But I grew up in a very similar household where country and oldies were my staple. And I kind of grew from that. And I will fully admit that my first album that I ever bought was Garth Brooks' Greatest Hits.
Yep. I feel bad about mine. So you bought the CD, or
I bought the CD.
Okay.
But on that note, I got to the point where I would absorb whatever music I could find. I went through a stage in my life where and almost to this day, between podcasting and audiobooks, audio anything is my life. I am much more like, I get it. I watch movies, I watch TV shows, but music is my heart blood.
Did you have anybody read you stories for bed?
My dad did.
I wonder if that's a tie.
It's probably Ty. I had all of the golden books.
Okay.
The gold spine.
Yep.
And my dad would read me books to go to bed. And when I got old enough, I read my own books to go to bed. Or Nick at Night was my sleep, my audio track to go to bed to.
All night with my audio tracks. Anyway.
That formed you in different ways, I'm sure.
That's Gilbert Godfrey.
But audio is a big thing for me. Weird. That's a good one. Weird Al. Just a lot of music formed me as a preteen into teenager into I went through the stage where I liked all the boy bands and the Britney Spears and everything and pop and all this other stuff. But I gravitate to just music in general, and I love listening to new stuff. And it's one of the first things I ask people of like, hey, what do you listen to? What like what makes you fucking feel alive?
Edit.
Like edit, but whatever. Give me and share with me those things. Even I had a lot of Dave Matthews things that I didn't realize I had until much later, until I became friends with somebody that loved it. Matchbox 20, luckily, again, I've talked about it before, is one of my bucket lists, and I did get to see them perform. Fall Out Boy, even though it's not yours.
I got mixed feelings. Fall Out Boy's got catchy music. I don't care for the lead singer.
It's one of those things of Fall Out Boy is something that through the time I listened to the music because it was catchy and upbeat and everything, and you listen to it when you're happy. But some of those lyrics, even though it's kind of hard to understand, when you listen to it for the umpteenth time, you hear new things, you hear new lines, you hear new things that correlate with your own life. But no, music in general, but Matchbox 20, I can never remember what it is, and I know you do. Someone
Yourself or Someone Like You?
Yourself or Someone Like You is by far my diehard album. I catch myself listening to it once every like 3 or 4 months, just because if I put it on, I can do other things, and it's got its good flow of upbeat music to stuff like Cody that resonates on levels that have made me bawl my eyes out, because I like, at the time, it's something about a line or a lyric or a verse or a phrase just hits you, and you're like,
funny enough,
wow,
I know how to play those songs. Maybe I'll do some sort of recording or something later online.
But I'm also kind of to full circle it with the original comment of, you listen to music when you're happy, you listen to the lyrics when you're sad. I'm also the type of person that I will play a song, realize I have not paid the amount of attention that requires that to accept that song and to understand that moment in which you're listening to it, and I will hit repeat. Sure. And I will re-listen to it because I did not give it the attention it needed at the time.
So I guess with that, what we're gonna do is we're gonna stay streaming for a little bit longer. But as for the podcast, because I am just recording this and then going to upload it on Tuesday night, Wednesday morning for our normal podcast, I will ask everybody of a favor though, because we're starting to get some real traction again. We had a little bit of a lull because we were on the America's Next Top Podcaster contest, and
so we lost a bit. We lost a bit of momentum.
We lost some momentum, but we gained some knowledge, and I'm okay with that trade. But what we need to do is we want to ask a favor of everybody to see about going on there, whatever podcast listening app or whatever else, iTunes. Apparently, our data, our metric shows that we have a lot of podcast listeners from iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Leave a review,
please.
You don't have to BS us. Like, if you don't like it, you don't have to put a 5-star review, but leave some sort of review up there to kind of help push us in the way, especially now because it is in quarantine, because we do have a lot of people who are making new podcasts, and I'm all for people expressing themselves through new outlets. On the flip side of that, we're drowning in a sea of new podcasters. And, we're obviously on episode 47 now. So we've been at this for at least a year. We've learned from some good people. Again, Drag It Show is one of our, go to their Twitch or their YouTube, or they have it on SoundCloud and a few other places. Just look them up as well. They were one of the original interests for me to get into podcasting, doing the Dungeons and Dragons, which can be found on YouTube, and just listening to those two kind of banter back and forth. Less structured, admittedly, but they do their own thing, and it got me thinking, hey, let's do a show as well. We
actually, kind of on that note, we actually kind of just re-recorded, well, not re-recorded, but we recorded an intro that summed up the first handful of our episodes of this is what we started as.
Episodes 1 through 5 is like hot garbage. but
Choo-choo.
I'm also kind of proud for the hot garbage because it's just it shows where we started, and if anything, there's a part of me that says anybody that's interested in doing a podcast or anything else, listen to those. Like if you're a fan of us and like where we are now, listen to the episodes like 1, 2, 3. You can even see what episode 3 is when we actually got Pepper Coyote to allow us to use the song Drive, which is still one of my favorite freaking songs by him too. But I talked to him at First Squared in 2019, and I was like, hey, can you would you be okay with us using these songs? Like, absolutely. I'm not expecting money or anything, just plug me or something. And so we make a point to plug them. And yeah, that song is just such a good driving guitar, the drums, everything. So it's just a case of listen to the first couple episodes and then see where we are now.
Right.
Again, we're not a we're more episodic rather than we're not a continual
you
show.
Don't have to listen for episode 1. We don't really have a lot of inside jokes. We don't have a lot
we got a couple inside jokes.
But just obviously, again, we kind of recorded with hey, we started this is where we feel we started it with this idea, but now how far have we come? Obviously, doing the competition and being 3rd and 4th place in America's Next Top Podcaster did us wonders. We know how to segment things. We know how to do bed music and how to not hard edit. Thank you.
Oh, hard edit. Jenny Jorgensen. Oh my goodness.
But please, again, check us out. Leave us a review. Please try to kind of spread us around. We really like getting more and more people. Drag It Show's great example.
We're starting to upload all of our old episodes onto YouTube.
Yep.
This is actually a video recording we're going to keep and put on YouTube as well.
Yep.
So, it's just as per anything, tell your friends, tell your neighbors. I don't know, just hit some random neighbor or hit some dude on the street and be like, we need to launch a podcast, and then leave, whatever. But anyway, I guess with that note, we're going to leave the show like we always have because it's been something that's really sunk home for us and we're super proud of. And again, thanks to Travis for inspiring us with this quote. And it is that we are all geeks. To be otherwise may very well mean to live without passion. Have a good night. Thank you for listening to another episode of Gray Muzzle Geekery with Dusty Red and Dusty White.
You can support our continued geekery at our Patreon website, patreon.com/graymuzzlegeekery. Be sure to check back often as we start to add geek cred levels.
You can send your questions and comments to us at graymuzzlegeekery@gmail.com or find us on Twitter at graymuzzlegeek.
We can be found on iTunes, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and Buzzsprout.
And a special thank you to Pepper Coyote for our intro theme. And if you like what you heard, you can find more of his stuff on Spotify, Patreon, or directly from his Bandcamp page.